Duelists, I'm not live today, but new cards, and these are special ones that made me press the record button off stream. Shadolls, I'm very happy about new Shadoll cards. Big fan of this deck, of course. The first deck I ever won a YCS with was Shadolls. So let's take a look at some new Shadoll monsters, and let's see what they got here in Terminal World 3. We've got Tohu Shadoll Grista, level 7 Earth Rock Flip monster. You can only use one of the first and second effect of this card's name in only one stat turn. Flip, target a non-rock Shadoll monster in your graveyard. Apply its effect that activates when it's flipped face up. If this card is sent to the grave by a card effect, you can fusion summon a Shadoll fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing its material from hand, field, and or graveyard. Cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck the turn you activate this effect, except Shadoll monsters. Okay. We're starting it off with an interesting one here. Interesting, but not broken, I would say. Copying a Shadoll flip effect in the graveyard is obviously neat. But this is like on the flip effect, which is a little bit harder to resolve. I feel like the first effect would have been more interesting if it was on a graveyard effect. Because of course all the Shadolls have a flip effect and a effect when sent to the graveyard. And I think it would have been interesting if one of their graveyard effects was to copy a flip effect. Because then what you could do is, let's say you have the ability to send a Shadoll card from your deck to the graveyard right now. Instead of choosing one of the graveyard effects, you could apply one of the flip effects that you have in the graveyard already. This is just like flip effect, target a flip effect, which is awkward. Because if I can go through the motions of summoning a Shadoll from my deck and then flipping it up and then using the effect, I could just be choosing the one that I want instead of this one, right? I hope you get what I'm saying. The graveyard effect is the one that's more interesting to me here because it feels like that's one of the more impactful ones that they have, especially on the opponent's turn. You know, being able to send this somehow and then summoning a Winda off of it seems pretty broken. You're not going to trigger any of their graveyard effects because you're banishing the material, which I think is a good balancing factor here. I don't like the fact that it's a level 7, so it's gonna be kind of bricky, so like it's not something that does anything on its own, which I think is something that Shadoll is missing. Is just like a good normal summon. You know, all the Shadolls are flip effects. None of them really do anything when they're summoned, which is just a little awkward, and that's why it's typically been paired with like other fusion engines that use the normal summon, like for example Alistair, just to search a invocation or something like that. But maybe a Shadoll internal normal summon would have been cool, which this is not, but it still is an interesting card. I would think it's more likely to be like a one-of though, just in the deck to send it, nothing too crazy, but yeah. El Shadoll Mesha Rail, level 10 Earth Machine Fusion Effect monster. It requires a Shadoll, a Dark, and an Earth. Must be fusion summoned. Unaffected by your opponent's activated spell trap effects and by activated effects from opponent's monsters whose original level or rank is lower than this card's current level. Once per turn, you can pay 800 life points, add a Shadoll card or a void spell trap from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent to the grave, you can special a Shadoll monster from your graveyard. Okay. One thing I have to do real quick is I have to take a look at Shadoll Fusion. Hold up. Does Shadoll Fusion say you can send 2 monsters from the deck to the grave? Or could you send 3? No, you can just use anything from the deck for Shadoll Fusion. Okay, so you can send 3 monsters with Shadoll Fusion now. That's new, and that's big. Any Shadoll, any Dark, any Earth with Shadoll Fusion that's pretty massive. I feel like this card didn't even need an effect for this to be good, but it does have an effect, you know. It's unaffected by spell traps and some monsters. And you can pay 800 to add another card. That's pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. That's a pretty good one. I think that's okay. That's gonna give this deck a whole new dimension, especially when you're going second and able to activate a Shadoll Fusion. I mean, of course, you're already pretty well off if you're resolving Shadoll Fusion going second even before this, but pretty good. Okay. Oh, this one we've seen already, I think. Yep, this one was, I think it was leaked before, yeah. Re-Shadoll, Wendy Kulu. This was a Shadoll and a Wind. Must be fusion summoned. You can only use the first effect of this card once per turn. Quick effect, change any number of set monsters to face up defense, and then you can flip face down the same amount of monsters, and then if this card sent to the grave, add a Shaddoll card from your graveyard to your hand. This card I think is interesting because it needs a wind monster, and previously the one that required a wind was pretty bad. And Wendy is the wind Shaddoll monster, is actually a pretty good fusion material. So using Wendy to make this is interesting because Wendy summons a monster from the deck in face down defense position, and then you can immediately flip it up with this card and potentially even use it as a disruption because you can do it on the opponent's turn and then flip their monsters face down. So kind of like it's a great deal because you flip your Shaddoll monsters face up and their monsters face down, which I think is pretty neat. I was a fan of this card when I first read it. My initial point still stands though, which is that I don't know if Shaddoll needed more fusion monsters or more good fusion material. I think all of these things are things that Shaddoll kind of already had. Of course, getting more high quality options is good, but I feel like what Shaddoll was missing is like maybe a good normal summon, maybe more consistency pieces, maybe more consistent ways to perform fusion summons within the archetype. And now, of course, this performs a fusion summon, but not really, like only if you can already play. So they're good cards, but we have one more. Void Liberation, normal spell. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name once per turn. Reveal a Shaddoll card in your hand. Add 2 Shaddoll cards from your deck to your hand of different types, monster, spell, trap, from the revealed card and each other. Then discard 1 card. Reveal a Shaddoll card in your hand and to add 2 Shaddoll cards from your deck to your hand of different types from the revealed card and each. Okay. So if you reveal a monster, you have to search a spell and a trap. If you reveal a spell, you have to search a monster and a trap. If you reveal a trap, you search monster, spell. Okay, I got it. And then discard 1 card. This forces you to play Shaddoll traps, but I don't think that's the biggest problem. The deck already wants to somewhat play some of these traps. Some of them actually have pretty good graveyard effects, so that makes sense. This card is awesome. Oh, second effect. You can banish this card from your grave, add an Infernoid monster from your deck or grave to your hand. Okay, Infernoid support randomly on the second effect. That's kind of awkward. I don't know if you're ever going to use Shaddoll and Infernoid in the same deck, but sure. I'm looking at it through the lens of Shaddoll right now because we're looking at Shaddoll monsters. That's a really good starter for that's what I should have just kept reading before I said something. It's not a normal summon, but this is a consistency piece, and it's a pretty good one at that, because it does go +1 in Shaddoll specifically, right? It's technically it's search 2, discard 1, which is not +1, but because you're playing Shaddolls, everything you're gonna discard is gonna have a positive effect. So yes, it is a +1 basically all the time. And it searches Shaddoll Fusion when you're going second if you reveal a monster or a trap card, which is pretty awesome. Okay, now before I read the spell card, I would have said these are just okay. They are not going to help that much. The spell card, I think, is by far the biggest deal here, which is really interesting. Is this going to help Shaddoll become a meta deck again? I'm not sure, maybe, because Shaddoll Winda is still one hell of a Yu-Gi-Oh card, you know? Even in 2025, even in 2026, by the time we get these cards, El Shaddoll Winda is still going to be a menace. It's going to be a monster. So Shaddoll doesn't really need more endboard pieces to be good. It just needs more ways to get there and more ways to play going second, which to an extent, that's what these cards will provide. So who knows? Maybe we'll all try playing some Shaddolls again in 2026. But good stuff. Good stuff here for Shaddoll fans. In terms of the Infernoid use of this card, I think the problem is, how are you going to get this card to the graveyard? I guess it's a really good Foolish Burial Goods target now that I'm thinking about it, in Infernoids, but and it's a good mill, I suppose. The problem with this card is, how are you going to get it out of your hand if you draw it, because you won't be able to activate it because you don't play Shaddolls in Infernoids? It is a void card, and I believe they have ways to send void cards for something else. Wasn't there a card that needs you to send another void card to activate it? Do they still play that? I'm not sure. You guys will let me know in the comments down below. I'm probably missing something about Infernoids, because I think Infernoids, if Infernoids has a way to get this card from the hand into the grave consistently, it's also a pretty good Infernoid card, actually. Because good mill, good target for like goods or something else, and then you might be able to discard it and search for free. Interesting. Okay, let me know what you think of these cards, and yeah, I think it's decent stuff. I think Terminal World 3, from what I've seen so far, is looking pretty decent.